Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to episode 2 of Between Two Tales podcast. I'm Kevin. I'm joined by my co-host Dave. Dave, why don't you tell the people what we're doing on this show?
Yes. For some of you who watched our old episode, our first episode, thank you for coming back. For the folks that are new, the format is we're going to go ahead and take 5 random generated words and try to come up with a functional story. And like I said, if you haven't seen our first episode, watch it after this one. Why not? And Kevin, the first
Yeah,
episode, I think, went into an interesting area.
that's right.
We had pottery as one of our keywords, and that was such a curveball to anything that we would ever think about writing for. So I'm interested to see what we kind of get into today and what kind of story we come up with.
Yeah, and it turned into like a murder revenge tale out of
Yeah.
the pottery studio and lie and other words too. So it was pretty cool. It was surprising on the direction we went and how we got. But I also have a surprise feature I want to incorporate today that I didn't even tell you about. I just thought about it
Okay.
yesterday.
Okay.
So there's an app called ChatGPT that's making waves across everybody. It's going to be like the next big thing, probably going to become Skynet and destroy us all.
Mm.
But right now, it's an AI tool that can generate code, or we're not going to use it for code, but it can generate stories if you tell it to, if you give it prompts. So the theme of today is going to be man versus machine. We're going to generate 5 words. We're going to create our version of the story. And since we're probably going to take longer than that AI, we're going to tell the AI to generate their version of the story after we're done, because it's going to take like 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
we're going to have the people vote on which story is better to
Oh man.
see if we should quit our jobs and find new skills, or if we should continue doing what we're doing.
I like it. I'm up to the challenge.
All right, so let's generate our words. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
All right, so let's generate 5 words. 1 spin. Everyone knows the rules. And here we go. Card, unfortunate, compete, prayer, and telephone. Let me write these words on my trusty whiteboard of truth. So we got card, unfortunate, compete, prayer,
And telephone.
telephone. That's right. So
Okay.
we got
I'm here thinking.
card, unfortunate. I can't even read backwards. Compete, prayer, and
prayer,
telephone.
and telephone.
I think we got some pretty decent themes this week too.
Okay. For some reason, I'm thinking of like the clergy or something. And
Clergy.
yeah, because we have the word prayer. I instantly think of like priests,
Right?
monks, something like that.
Yeah.
That may be a character. We'll see. Because unfortunate and compete and telephone can work in a lot of different ways. Card, when I originally heard card, I was thinking of like a greeting card or a happy birthday or holiday card, and then I was like, well, card can also be like a
Credit card.
credit card, yeah,
Debit card.
and there might be something in there with a credit card, like someone took some money or using a card.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was thinking of that, the next thing I kind of went into was No Country for Old Men, where
Mm.
it had nothing to do with a card, but they had that. I think it was a briefcase or whatever it was with cash, and then like
Yep.
this crazy hunt to go track down, who where the cash went. So, or where the cash went, I should say. But those are kind of something that I'm like playing around with there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So my mind automatically shifts to like things that contrast that are just like so pretty much like out of the ordinary. Like last time where we had
Yeah.
like a murder story inside a pottery studio. It's like what you would never think about the two, right? So my mind kind of shifts in that direction too. When you were talking about monks, the clergy, priests, I was thinking about like, all right, how about there's a monk that steals someone's debit card, and now,
Or a monk who's incorrectly blamed for a missing debit card. They think he stole it and he didn't. And maybe the credit card belongs to some higher up mob boss or something. I don't know.
it could be that. It could be that he could be an innocent person, or he can actually be a bad person, get tangled up with the wrong people,
Yeah.
and he's only practicing his monkhood, or however you phrase it, so he can absolve himself of all his sins day to day.
What if it was like something where the monk, before he was a monk or became a monk, had a past life in
Oh,
crime
that's
or
true.
something like this, and
Yeah,
then it's like telling the story of like
he's trying to do his redemption
how he
story, but his
got, yeah,
past keeps
redemption
getting
story, how he
caught up
got
with
to,
him.
yeah,
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting too.
be a journey in that.
Because that's an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah.
It's like, will he compete his transition from um, organized crime member to faithful monk?
I'm thinking, back in the day, he could have been competing for, you know, dominance over a region from another
It's
person or
another crime
organized group.
family.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's before we go any further into the idea, let's just discuss a little bit more about prayer because that's just one aspect of it, like clergy, priest, monk, so on. And
Doesn't
then there
necessarily
can
have
be
to
the
be,
act of prayer.
yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be like anything religious. It could just be,
Right.
they just said a prayer for something to happen, like a Hail Mary
Yeah.
thing to happen. And if it happens or not, that's up to us, the story creators.
Right. Like just for example, you could take all these words and make it completely something different. There was a film by Steve Carell. I think it was called like Good Boy or
Good boy.
something like that. And pretty much, oh, Beautiful Boy. And pretty much his son is like on drugs and whatnot, some heavy drugs,
Yep.
and it's kind of like the arc of the father trying to get his son to come to step away from using drugs
Yep.
and back into the family life and doing and living up to his fullest potential, let's say. And I'm just bringing it up because I can take all these same words and apply it to something like that, where you have telephone, more obvious one, prayer and praying, could be an aspect of him trying to cope with his son's choices, etc. Right? And so it can also go, instead of being just like a mob boss um, thing, crime thing, we can also go in a direction that's a little bit more, uh,
A little more wholesome.
yeah, or there's a certain emotional element to it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Hmm.
like anything, all of it can work. It's just a matter of what we feel, what we feel like writing for today.
Right. Wherever our minds take us. Okay, so it could be the father is praying for his son. Um, maybe the son's going through some unfortunate things, and he's praying for it.
Or it could be the reverse, or flip flop. It could be the child, maybe they're an adult, right? But the offspring of the parent, and maybe one of the parents is having a downturn in life, um, where abuse of drugs, whatever, is causing them to have this downturn, and the child, the offspring, the child is trying to get them to come back onto a path that's more healthier and better, and maybe if they achieve this, they can be reintegrated into the family unit. They have this like a grandchild or whatever.
I just had the wildest thought about this direction. I don't know why interstellar vibes just popped in my head, but
Ooh, yeah, okay.
like the child, similar in Interstellar, their dad, mom, whoever, maybe doesn't get lost in space, but
Mm,
goes through a black hole, enters a different um, time continuum space, and now maybe that the timelines, his dad is similar in Interstellar. He's moving slowly, but in real time, his child is growing up fast, right? So they end up being the same age. So maybe
mm,
uh, the child is still
mm.
praying for his dad to return, and then his dad sends a card or a telephone call from his timeline that gets to the child because of the difference in timelines. It gets I don't know how those physics work, but it gets to
Yeah.
that child like at a certain year from his time point.
So basically, in that line of thinking, I mean, we definitely would have to send someone into. I mean, that worked because the idea was around traveling to another. I guess they were going to another galaxy. I really don't remember. But as they landed on another planet, the time on that planet was very different than the time back on Earth, right?
I think Earth was
Um,
dying, and they were trying to look for another planet to
yeah,
habitat to live on.
right. Which I don't believe they even did. I
I
think they
think
ended up building
the
like a
girl did solve
station,
it because her dad sent her clues or something. I'm pretty sure.
something like that. Because it already happened. I mean, it could get as trippy as that. It could get as trippy as that.
Yeah, I love that movie.
What's the I'm trying to like pull the main points of that idea, and it's like the same thing kind of, where it's like the child is helping the parent, because I think in that one it was a father helping the child technically, like, but from a different timeline.
Yeah,
um and now, are you saying you're thinking maybe that's the route, or one
that's just an
possibility
idea.
is to, yeah, yeah,
When you were saying like when you brought up the direction of a child praying for their dad or their
yeah.
parent, that's what popped in my head, and I was like, huh, interesting, because I think in Interstellar he he sends like a signal to himself his self on another
Yeah,
timeline or
yeah. I
something.
mean, technically, I think. Well, I have to rewatch that film. So for anyone watching who's like, man, they're butchering up this film. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's just been a while since I've seen it. I remember, like,
Not our fault.
I think he sent some kind of signal to himself to show up at that facility, which got them going. Which is like he needs to get to the facility first, get in trouble, and then they're like, "Hey, you can use your skills to pilot stuff." Um, but I just remember, I think it's like the fourth dimension, if I'm not mistaken, where he was like, there was like bands of light, and then the bookshelf and whatnot, and he was like pushing in stuff, and then like they're able to read the code. Um, and that was his way of communicating with his daughter, at least.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm pretty sure, man. All Interstellar fans out there, ream us, but I think he went through a black hole too, or I don't know. I forgot how he got there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He went through a black hole um, with that machine.
Yeah, it's been so long. I gotta rewatch it.
Yeah, it's been a while. Oh man.
It's been so long, but that
So safe to say we don't possess the understanding of the physics to write a story. I mean, I'm sure when you're gearing up to write a story like that, you sit down
you
and
gotta do research.
begin to do the
Yeah,
research to understand. And when you're Christopher Nolan, as he did, I think the guy's name was like Kip, um, or Skip, something like that. Sat down with that guy to like talk about understanding it to better understand it, and like what would actually happen or what would theoretically happen and so on. So we're not going to write that because I have no idea what we're talking about.
we need Neil
Um,
deGrasse Tyson on the show.
yeah, we would, and it would just blow our minds. I'm thinking, and don't forget, this word compete is also in there too, right? And I'm trying to think how that would be integrated.
We could
You
take
know,
it to a sports movie. Easiest thing is team is down by down by 2. It's in a basketball game. It's a championship. 2 seconds left. They gotta move the ball the whole entire court. They throw it to uh, Steph Curry. He heaves it as a prayer shot, banks off and goes in, and they win the game.
I think I think there's a way to incorporate prayer competition, and then I think card and unfortunate and telephone can be more easier ways to, or more easier to integrate. But you know, I'm not going to name names, and it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different people, anyways. But this idea, when you said sports, this idea of a father as a basketball, let's say an NBA superstar or whatever, right? Played his game, gets hooked on drugs, whatever, whatever. But he taught his son or daughter, maybe it's a WNBA thing, everything they know, right? They're also like great at the sport. Um, and that might be a way to merge, you know, competition. And there might be a scene that's like, I think it was like He Got Game. But, there might be a scene where it's like they end up playing each other, and maybe this helps them resolve uh, issues, an issue or that they've had that has been, just like I said, unresolved, and they play this game or whatever, or it ends with a game after they go through some stuff, and it's kind of like it's like a path to finding themselves. From the father's aspect is getting um, off and back into a healthier lifestyle, let's say, son or daughter, it's reconciling the problems and issues that they have with their parent,
Yeah.
and trying to move forward from that. And then with with the umbrella of it being around basketball at the highest level.
Right. Right. Now coffee's kicking in, so my mind's jumping from genre to genre now.
Okay.
I was looking at fantasy. A prayer, could be like similar to wishes. Uh,
True.
Little girl finds a magical lamp, meets some kind of spirit. Um, she says certain, she doesn't know, but she gets certain prayers that come true. So maybe she wastes a few, saying, "Oh, I wish." Maybe her like favorite candies. I was like, "Oh, I wish I had more of this candy." And all of a sudden, a box of that candy shows up at her door or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like without knowing, she starts to waste like a few of those prayers,
Yeah.
and then when it comes time to maybe she's put in a situation where she has to choose between two things, and it can only be one way or the other, and she has to use up her last prayer to make this path happen, but that other path can't happen. Something
Yeah.
like that.
A story like that kind of also hinges on the understanding that by picking one prayer over the other, whatever the consequences are life changing or whatever, dire. If it doesn't change your situation, it drastically changes someone else's,
Yeah.
and that person will have to hold on to their morals, or their morals may compete with the decision that they made in some capacity. Um, and it was funny. I was thinking like, for some reason, I thought you were going in the way of Death Note,
Oh, I
and I
mean,
was like, oh, I thought you were gonna get dark with it.
hey, I mean, we can continue this theme of making dark stories. I light Yagami. I'll never forget that character.
I'm I I'm just saying, if she's making wishes or prayers,
Sending people to
no, a
their
notebook,
doom, huh?
right? A notebook, maybe it's not even a notebook, right? But that's something that it could go towards as well.
Yeah, maybe like this person gets bullied at school, finds a what do you make prayers on?
Well,
A magical witching well. Flips a coin into it,
okay,
be like, I hope my bully gets hit by a truck tomorrow. Shows up the next day at school. There's yellow tape everywhere. Crime scene investigation. There's a truck on the side, on its side, smoking. It smokes. There's a car that's crumpled like an accordion, and her bully's gone.
back to the dark story so quickly. I say just be out picking. Just be. I mean, as entertaining as they really are. Um, do we want to do another dark story after doing a, a dark story before? But hey, don't forget though, sometimes with prayer and whatnot, it leads, some of the best films that centers around prayer and whatnot have been showed the uglier side of humanity
Yeah.
alongside of it too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see.
Okay. Out of any of the ideas that have been kind of spitballed out, we had something around the lines of the father daughter, let's say whatever that is, basketball story. We have
Yep.
the potential little girl or just woman who uh, puts out prayers and wishes. On the lighter side, as far as we don't have to make it dark. Then we have little girl in school, maybe has hints of Death Note. Um, and then I think the very first idea we had was something around crime family, clergy, monk, priest, that kind of deal, and kind of like I think that was more of a redemption story.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of like uh, maybe like I saw a show that was pretty similar to that. The name of the show is slipping my head, but it's about this guy who's kind of like a hitman. He's not really a hitman. He just does like criminal jobs for a living, and he's like his whole mantra is there's such thing as good violence, right? So
that there is or isn't.
there is.
Oh, okay.
So he in the beginning he is committing like violent acts of crime, like killing people for
Mm,
just because that's his job, right? He's not doing it for fun.
right.
He's getting paid to do it. And towards the middle, he tries to get away from that life. Like
Okay.
he tries not to be violent anymore, but things just from his past just keep pulling him back in,
Yeah.
right? And
It's like
then
it's like one of those things where it's like you're so far in, it's hard to step out at that point.
yeah, and then in the
Yeah.
end, it was a short series. It was like 13 episodes or something, one season. In the end, it looks like he's escaped from that life, but I remember the scene. He's driving these two like younger kids, and he's like an Uber driver or something. And the younger kids tell him to
Mm.
pull up to the woods or something because they actually planned on killing him for some reason. And
Why does this sound familiar? I don't think I haven't watched this, but I think either you or someone else has brought this up before.
yeah, it's called Mister something. I forgot the name.
Hmm.
But they're stopped in the middle of the woods, and all of a sudden, these two kids in the back who plan on killing him tell him to step out, and he just looks back at them and he smiles because they don't know who they just messed with, and then the show ends
Hmm.
there. So
And
that
that's how the series ends.
yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
so it's pretty much like I wouldn't. It's pretty much a 360. I was gonna say 180, but 180 is a change.
Yeah.
360, you end up at the same spot.
Maybe he's happy that someone's gonna take him out and is like part of the circle. But I haven't seen the show. I don't know if he has self-sacrifice
Yeah,
as a part of his character. Um,
yeah. So it could be something like that. I think. Huh. I feel like we should try our hand at the wholesome story just to challenge ourselves. I feel like we can easily make.
we could we can make more darker stories easily.
Yeah, I feel like we could
Yeah.
definitely just make the monk story and the darker Death Note story pretty easily, and this wholesome one is a bit challenging. But mind you, we're competing against the AI here.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what that spits out. because these words are a little bit harder to. We'll see what it spits out. I think by going the wholesome side, I agree with you. Um, might give us a completely different story than what the AI had in mind, but we'll see.
Yeah, we can try to make like we can turn it into a tearjerker. You know, we've done that.
Yeah.
Turn
So
that into a
which
few
which
things.
tearjerker are we going to strip from? Because remember, even the one with like the monk and so on can still be more of like a on the path to redemption too, right? I mean, it doesn't have to go the crime way. It could have been crime and then, moves to something more wholesome. Um, and then I just think that the family dynamic one is interesting. Because that might feel more real to a wider audience,
Yeah,
and then dealing with like how do you maybe not forgive, potentially forgive. I mean, we haven't written the story, but how do you deal with the complicated emotions of, this is your parent, they're supposed to be giving you advice and for navigating life, but now you're put in the other role where you have the responsibility, or you take on the responsibility to help that parent come back into the fold and say,
there's another interesting story now that
yeah,
you bring it back. Now you bring that part up, the reclimbing part. Um, I don't know if he's still in the league, but there was another basketball player that showed up. Like his story is kind of incredible. He showed up to G League tryouts. He made the G League team, and because he was so good, he eventually got a spot on the NBA team. And he was able to like play successfully for a couple of years. I don't think he's in the league anymore.
mm,
But he managed to get himself like a decent contract
yeah,
when like a couple of years ago he was like working, a minimum wage job. But he was still
mm,
good at ball, and he just showed up to a G League tryout. Like they hold G League tryouts like it's literally like similar to like a high school basketball tryout or something. He made the team and worked his way up to an actual NBA team, and
yeah.
now he's doing whatever. I don't know, but that
I
could be like
mean,
the redeeming part of the character arc.
yeah, the redeeming part of getting to NBA, or like dropping out of the NBA, but they found purpose in something else because now they had this rise through the highest levels of basketball.
Yeah, like they were at the highest levels, reached the lowest lows, and now they're not back to their peak of where they were, but they're back in
Okay,
they're back
so it's
in
like they can be removed. That's not even a story that's even told often, right? Or at all, right? It's like, all right, G League, NBA, maybe they get pushed back to the G League, and then or overseas, and they're like, I just need to get back to NBA, and then they get back to NBA.
yeah, or there
Still
are
a great
some
thing.
players because of mistakes that they've made, they can't come back regardless. Like
Mm,
I bring that up. The first person I think of is Ray Rice. He was
yeah,
like a star running back.
yeah,
Unfortunately, the video showed him of him, hitting
yeah,
his significant other, and he's never been back. But he was in his prime. Like he was like the best running back in the league or something. But I haven't followed what he's been doing lately. So maybe he does have a redemption arc or something like that. But that could be one where there's no path for them to go back, so that they have to find fulfillment in something else that's maybe in
Yeah.
the same field, maybe not. But they pretty much have to reinvent themselves and find a new life.
Right. Okay. So let's add some focus here. So we're going with some kind of, we're just going to say NBA player redemption story. So the main mission for the story, at least, is, main character needs to redeem themselves after reaching the pinnacle and falling off, right?
And because I have to throw this out there, because of the theme of our first two episodes, he kills somebody, and now he's a fugitive on the run with a new identity, and
Well,
ends up being a star basketball player somewhere else.
we didn't say why they fell off, right?
And he has to change his game up. Maybe he's normally right-handed, but he practiced being left-handed just to keep in this new identity.
Yeah, they put on a beard and a wig.
That's right. Grew out his hair, put in different color contacts.
Even got the surgery to change his height.
Oh, stop! I've seen that.
All right, so we're gonna use prayer in the sense of like prayer. Um, in the sense of praying for help or guidance or whatever have you.
Yeah. Yep.
Telephone, I'm sure it'll work its way in multiple times, but
Yeah,
phone
that's
calls
simple.
is the most obvious one.
Yep.
Um,
Unfortunate is pretty obvious. Compete. The rest of these are pretty obvious. I think prayer is like the main
yeah,
focal point for which the story is built around. The
I
main
think
theme.
so. What should our main or it could be multiple, but like the main obstacles, besides, all right, so we have one obstacle that we already kind of honed in on is um, trying to return from falling off, right? Um, are there, and I'm trying to think like what other obstacles and issues happen on the sidelines of that. This person might have financial troubles now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think, and it's not that we have to even dive too crazy deep into it here, but you know, just to kind of round out the problems of this character, and what's a realistic thing to that they would have
Maybe
problems with.
someone pulled a Dane Cook on him. You know how like Dane Cook's brother stole like tens of millions of dollars from him without even knowing?
Yeah, it's like Step Brother did that. Yeah,
Crazy. Maybe something like that.
yeah.
Maybe like he's like
Oh,
his
you know what? It's not uncommon for a lot of these sports players to be, besides just spending ridiculous amounts, but they give money out to people all the time, um
yeah, their
and
entourage.
sometimes their entourage and sometimes their managers are siphoning off money or whatever because they're just not paying attention. So a family member or manager
All right, I
takes
got it.
money.
His manager gets him to do a fire festival. He sinks all his money
Who
into
is he?
it.
Is he Ja Rule?
That's right. Sinks all his money into it. People show up. They have to live in tents and eat cheese sandwiches.
Something I just thought of was, as an obstacle, I would assume that there's probably people around him that he needs to shed, and that's also an obstacle too. Like part of this entourage is probably holding him down. right? So you might need to shed them in order to like refocus his efforts towards practice or whatever. Instead of, hey, let's go to the club or let's do X and Y, which takes you away from the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Right. Yeah, that could be it. That could be one.
Because I'm thinking in terms of like, you have career fall off, financial problems, and then there's always people problems. Especially when you make money, or you make money and then there's like issues that come after it. People get used to the good life, and then when all of a sudden it starts to change, you start to either see who your real friends are, or et cetera, right? Um, 'Cause like this person's going to learn a lot about themselves as well.
Yeah. Right. There's been like a scandal going on in like fight fixing in MMA recently. This coach
Mm,
was in this huge thing, and they like laid down the hammer on him. But if we, if I take inspiration from that, if let's say he's not a ball player anymore, he's like a boxer or something, and he's going into a fight with a pre-existing injury.
hmm
But his manager, his coach, encourages him to go do it anyway because he's like, "Oh, you're the best. You're gonna win anyway." Goes in, uh, his leg falls apart because that was his injury, and he loses. But the scandal is his coach actually bet against him.
mm,
Told all these like gambling sharks to bet against the guy because since he's like the best, he's like a huge favorite. So the underdog line is probably crazy, and they cashed out. Um, and then media, all these news outlets catches wind of it. His coach is obviously at fault, but obviously the guy is involved, right?
yeah.
Even if he doesn't, even if he doesn't want to be, he's involuntarily involved now in this thing, and that just ruins his career too.
Make this into a boxing film, like some Creed. Creed 3 actually is coming out not too long, not too pretty soon.
I don't know if I watched two. Is Michael B.
I don't
Johnson still in it? Or
know.
Michael B.
Jordan,
Jordan?
yeah, yeah. See, he's the one person that just can't go by Michael Jordan. You're like,
No, he just
for
has
you,
an
you have to put
unfortunate
the
name.
B in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for you have to put the B in there.
He's probably says to his mom and dad, he's like, "Why'd you name me Michael Jordan, yo?" He's like, "We just love Michael Jordan."
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, that's not the Michael Jordan we're talking about. You're like, you gotta use your middle name.
Right.
Okay. I'm also trying to think of no real need for world building because it's like real world. Um, it's like it's pretty much sports drama.
Sports drama, redemption,
Yeah.
basically. Huh.
All right. So,
Let me see if there's another baseball. I mean, all right, let me baseball. Um, maybe trainer guy gets really bad injury. It's pretty well known that you can use human growth hormone and all these performance enhancing drugs to heal up faster. Uh, so maybe he gets really bad injury, needs a rehab. his trainer, his health coach or whatever, gives him these supplements. Says he's natural like the Liver King. Turns out
Yeah.
they're full of steroids, just like the Liver King. And the dude heals up really fast, faster than usual, comes back even stronger. He's like, oh, we're on this natural stuff. But it ends up being steroids because he gets tested. And all of a sudden his career just goes down the chute.
This man said there's no redemption. You just lose.
And then he has to go play ball overseas. Baseball is pretty popular in Japan. He has to go play in Japan.
Hold on.
Or he takes up an entirely new sport. He plays cricket now.
Oh God, I don't even know how cricket is really. All I'll say is this: remember, redemption is not one of our words that we need. But when you were talking about, you said like, all right, pick another sport, and you brought up, football, whatever. I was like, prayer, compete, yada yada, falling off. I don't know if it's a redemption story, but it's like trying to give back, maybe. But like the whole thing with, especially around football and CTE,
right?
And how that can have someone fall off drastically. And sometimes, I'm not gonna make any claims as far as like because I don't know whether it's not like a causation, but it's like some of these players end up committing suicide. Those particular ones who they get a chance to examine their brain do show signs of CTE, and sometimes very severe. But that might be a story there for true prayer and reflection, and like it's pretty. I would assume like that would be pretty upsetting because for these folks that get it and for whatever reason, it leads to depression and so on.
Or maybe
or it can lead to depression.
Maybe the athlete has a really close friend or family member that has had mental issues, suicidal ideations. He talked him off the ledge a couple times, thought that person was in the clear, but that person just found their way back to the ledge and just went a bit too far over. So now, the athlete, the protagonist, thinks of themselves as they failed. They failed that person. Now they're gone. Failed themselves. Things in their head just keep swirling about how they could have done better, what they could have done differently. And now they're like an advocate. They're giving back for mental health. They talk more about it instead of keeping it.
It could be like what's going on in this athlete's life and in their world. What you see on TV is them showing up and they're playing their game and whatever, right? They're doing well. Maybe they have an off game, and it's like, oh, the commentators are saying some other stuff. They have no idea what's actually going on in this athlete's world, right? And so you get that juxtaposition between like the limelight, success, the gravy train should be running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting representation of the world we live in now with like the explosion of social media and stuff.
Yeah.
Understand
what
that
you see isn't necessarily what's happening. Like
you only get the highlights. Yeah. Social media. And then
that's a pretty good story.
And then this athlete all of a sudden, flips the script and starts sharing all these things that were happening. Maybe after their friend or whoever commits suicide, they themselves start having suicidal ideations or something. And now they're struggling.
I think we're on to something here.
And those struggles, obviously, mental game is a huge part of anything, especially in sports. They're not the same person. They take up
Yeah.
horrible habits like drinking, drugs, whatever, falls off. And then we can have someone who pretty much was in the same position as they were before their friend passed away. That person serves as who this character was in the beginning of the story and brings them back up. Could be a coach, whatever, another teammate, random person at a coffee shop.
Or it can also be a commentary on, if people need help, to seek help, professional help.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, this is happening. Whether the player suggested that the friend go and seek help is one thing that we can discuss.
Yeah. I will say the character has to be male because it's just going against the I guess standards of what a man should be, like be tough and whatever, blah blah blah.
But
And
don't forget, Kevin, it's also pointing to the fact of most suicides are usually male.
yeah,
Majority.
and it's because I think it's because men are are meant, or they have this image, they have this idea in their head that they have to be tough, blah blah blah, push through these things, and they don't have or they're like too embarrassed to talk about these things, right? So they don't
Yeah.
seek help or whatever. Not as open about this kind of stuff.
Right.
This is turning into a
Mm.
a sad story, but
Yeah, but I'm with it. I
it's
think it's
interesting.
something that we typically wouldn't go towards, but it's fresh in a way that I have to think differently. All right, let's then focus on that. It really doesn't even matter what sport this person plays. Um, so we can just pick a sport.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what sport.
Racquetball.
Handball, dodgeball,
They're a professional tag player.
professional dodgeball player,
Um,
soccer, World Cup.
yeah, why not? In honor of the World Cup.
All right,
You
they're a
mean
soccer player.
football? You mean football, Kevin? Our international crowd will not be happy.
Football, aka soccer.
All right, so yeah, soccer player. Yes, we are going to say soccer player. If you have a problem with it,
We're
too bad.
Americans. Sorry. Soccer was the first sport I grew up playing. It was soccer back then, and it's soccer to me now still because I really don't. Except for the World Cup, I don't really watch football.
Yeah.
Except for American football. So, all right.
Okay.
So,
So the
soccer player.
the main character needs to, you know, the well, the main mission pretty much is it kind of shifts. It goes from helping their friend
Yep.
to seeking the help themselves. Okay. Some kind of obstacles. You know, the main obstacle obviously is, once they reach that point of depression for themselves is you know, finding happiness is the obstacle.
Finding their way back, right?
Finding their way back, yeah.
And
By
this
finding
is
their way back,
interesting.
it also helps their sports, but their game, but that's kind of secondary to the main mission of this story,
Yeah, this is interesting because sports fans are brutal. It's like you're only to most
Oh
people,
yeah,
you're only as good as your last game, right? So
yeah.
maybe when he's going through these hard
They
times,
attack.
whatever he decides to, maybe he decides to take a break while the team is in a championship run or something. He has to he makes himself sit out or something for himself,
Yeah,
and then he gets reamed by all these
right,
fans sending him horrible messages and stuff, which doesn't help. It just escalates the problem even more.
right.
Um, he starts posting. I don't know. Maybe he does put out stuff, uh, messages on social media that is kind of like a cry for help. But
Right.
he's just getting reamed for it. People are calling him a bitch, whatever.
And so, you know, that would also, besides just contributing to their mental health, um, it actually may make them, as far as um, the behavior of the character, it would probably, probably start to close up more. Instead of,
Right,
hey, I tried sharing, I tried, whatever, and it's being met with hostility and whatever, and they might want to start closing their shell more to protect themselves. Or they think it's a protection mechanism.
right. Because maybe
Yeah,
um, in the beginning when they're helping their friend, they were in an advocate for being open, expressing your feelings and stuff. That's how they were helping their friend, so they know how they're doing and stuff. So he starts to do the same thing, except he doesn't really have anyone to talk to. He has all this following, so he just posts it, trying to be open about it, hoping to hear some words of encouragement.
yeah,
But because of the circumstances and how wild sports fans are, uh, he just gets the complete opposite.
right. Okay. Let's talk about our character here real quick. We need some names.
Raul. I don't know why that name just.
It's because of soccer. I understand. I
Cristiano.
get it.
uh, let's see.
So we
Soccer
look at
name.
some names.
Dave.
Yeah, there was that Mr. David Beckham. What's the ethnicity of this person that we're going after? Because soccer is such a world sport that if we stay in the U.S., it's fine. Um, However, if we move them to like England or Spain or something like that, it may change, impact what their name would be.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think for the purposes And in honor of the U.S. making the World Cup this year, actually making it into the tournament, we'll just stay in the U.S.
Okay. Hey, this is something to bring up. Um,
Okay, so I feel like
popular names: Jacob, Michael, Matthew, Joshua, Christopher, Nicholas, Andrew, Joseph, Daniel, Tyler.
Tyler.
That's
Tyler.
the name. Justin, Alexander, Anthony. Anthony.
Sure. We'll call him Anthony. Anthony Burns.
The brother of Erica.
Oh, you know what?
um,
What if we combine both the stories? You know, since Erica Burns from our last story had such an unfortunate ending, her brother Anthony Burns is trying to help her. Now I'm just getting way too far, but that would
imagine if we made each story connected some way
connect to each
somehow.
other in some way.
Everyone's a sibling or cousin or aunt, uncle or something.
By like episode 100, we just create this massive world
And
of
it's
characters.
like the most messed up family. Or not. Who knows what other stories we'll have.
We make a version of the Adams Family.
Ooh.
Speaking of Adams Family, you should watch Wednesday.
I heard. I do need to check it out. You know, there was I'm looking at these last names and I don't know why, but Anthony Lee just sounds good.
Anthony Lee. All right.
Yeah, it just I don't know. Just sounds good.
You know what? What ethnicity is this person, or does it not matter?
It could matter. Hey, let's just say like, all right, Lee is kind of one of those interesting last names because your initial reaction is say, okay, is this person Asian? But I've met people, and as I'm sure a lot of Americans have at some point, Lees that are not Asian at all with the last name Lee.
No, I've met people named Lee. Um, as a white person, I've met
Yeah,
people with the last name Lee, and I think uh, with black people too. I've met
yeah.
people last name Lee as well.
It pops up. It pops up in interesting places, and so it can kind of almost be anyone. Except I never met someone who was Hispanic named Lee.
I was just about
Um,
to say that.
so,
That totally makes sense.
I never met anyone Hispanic named Lee. Um,
So now we flip the script here. This is a Mexican player named Anthony Lee.
well, why not make him Asian? I feel like there's not as many stories in America around Asian main characters, and especially in a sport.
Like an Asian soccer player, yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
in America, like that's not common.
Yeah, all right. Makes him stand
Yeah,
out.
and then I also think that there might be like some cultural significant differences and significance in like how to go about discussing depression or suicide thoughts with potential family members or the because for those who don't know, my background's Jamaican, and it's not like Jamaicans are lining up to go see a therapist. Um, so there's like those cultural identity uh, things that, when it comes to stuff like this, it plays a part in the overall thinking.
Yeah,
So there might be something in there.
I
I
feel
don't
like it's
know.
the same way with Asian culture.
Mm.
Um, you know, they suicide is pretty well known in Asian culture. That's why the craziest thing was a friend once told me there's a building in uh in Japan. It might be in all the workplaces for all I know, but there's a net. Like, there's a little
Mm.
net inside the building, and you can probably put together a piece
Oh, you're.
why.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, exactly. Isn't that nuts? That's kind of nuts, right?
Inside the building.
Yeah, there's a net.
Mm.
But obviously, they wouldn't put that there unless stuff has happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you brought up Japan, I thought you were going to talk about that forest
Well, that too.
that's been
That's there
dubbed.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. And what I've seen about it, it's kind of like, again, just like anywhere else, predominantly more males go,
Yep.
and they say that when they do go, it's probably true of in America as well. To be honest, it's kind of this quiet thing, like usually no warning, no nothing. You know, walk in and they don't come. They don't leave the forest. Let's say. Um, and now I'm thinking about it uh, with the friend.
To take this in a lighter mood for a second,
Okay, go ahead.
their friend turns into a ghost and comes back. Takes a huge twist on this story.
Just
And
adding curveballs in.
just to lighten up the mood, and his friend haunts him for the rest of the story.
He
And
tells
now,
him his friend tries to help him for the
no,
rest of the
look,
story,
look at this
but so,
twist.
on a comedy take.
Now, look at this twist. Now this player has to turn into a monk to exorcise his friend. All right. Anyway,
That would be. Is not so. Let's say that couldn't happen. A story like that would be so bizarre, but
imagine
it could.
turns
Hey,
into like this like
anything could
serious
happen
feel
with
good
the
story.
imagination.
Turns into this starts off as a serious feel good story. Then we throw the audience a curveball, turns into a comedy, a slapstick
Yeah,
comedy.
yeah, and then the audience will hate us. They're like, who made this? Um, all right. I put male 22. Doesn't have to be 22. I just threw down an age roughly. Um,
And he's like a star player. Like
yeah,
I know soccer's not as popular here in the US, but let's just say in this world it is, since it
yeah,
is the
yeah.
biggest international
It's
sport
it's our
overall.
world here. So he's a star player. Um,
Or we can make it grounded in reality too, because it's well known that if you are a good U.S. soccer player, you go to Europe to go play, or you go to like uh like the Spanish league. I forgot what it's called, La Liga, or you go to the Champions League and play for one of those overseas teams. So maybe he was on his way there, and
yeah,
all these circumstances kind of derailed his path there, his journey there. And it was like building up to be like this huge, great story. U.S. Asian American soccer player, never heard, never been heard of, on his way to on his way to the equivalent of the Champions League to play for a big team over there.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, um, the friend he's helping, childhood friend, brother, I don't know, family member. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
They commit suicide. That makes his world turn upside down, and he's all of a sudden now he's he has to find his way back.
Do you think we're adding in too much into the pot, so to speak?
I mean, we were adding too much if his friend turns into a ghost and he has to exercise.
Well,
Right now, not necessarily. I don't think so. This is all like all the things I just said are just like parts of his
yeah.
story. I think there needs to be a situation where he's in a position where he's built up a bunch of fans. They're all invested in his journey, invested in the team that he's on or something. He does something that just disappoints them, and now he's receiving backlash. He's seeing the repercussions of that because that
Right.
is the reality of social media.
All right.
So whatever that might be, it
Right.
doesn't have to be he goes overseas to play.
I originally said he got derailed from helping his friend, which is an interesting. My initial reaction was, no, but I was thinking about it. It's like, yeah, it shows how much he cares for his friend and helping his friend. And that might just be good enough.
So he gets derailed from helping his friend.
No, it could because I'm trying to play with the idea of like, it's like at a certain point he has to make a decision on if he's going to continue. Like, let's say before going, right, he has to make a decision on if he's going to go, which means that he won't be around his friend in person as much, let's say, or whatever, to help.
Yep.
So he has to make a very difficult decision. And I wonder if I'm trying to think, all right, what would a rational person do in that situation? And you one of the paths could be like, hey, like, seek professional help. Here's some recommendations, etc. Goes to go play. Friend gets further depressed, or whatever, and maybe they still keep in touch. He calls him or whatever while he's overseas, and friend does what he does.
Yep.
He's no longer alive, and then that causes the guilt to build on Anthony, because maybe he thinks that had he had stayed, things could have been different. And it takes someone who's smart to get him to realize, let's say, that it had you stayed, it doesn't mean that you could have done anything to have helped.
Right.
But he gets it in his head that had he stayed, it would have been the change factor. It would have helped him to not get further into, his friend get further into depression and so on. But the guilt of it is what can start Anthony also into his decline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So it's his career. Because when you were saying that, uh, I was just thinking about the character. Because there's multiple ways we could take that, right? There's a
Yeah.
there's a situation which you said that just drives him from being able to assist his friend. He has to go play overseas to further
Yeah.
his career, or the simple fact of just like fame and money, right? Sometimes that changes people. That could
Yeah.
be also interesting. So he you know he's so used to this other way of life now, where he's getting indoctrinated into it, and it's starting to change him. So he's maybe not keeping in touch with his friend as much anymore
Mm-hmm.
until the thing happens, and all of a sudden all this flood of guilt is coming back. He's regretting all this, blah, blah, blah. He looks at all the materialistic and vanity stuff that he's been so indulging in for the past whatever time frame as like worthless now.
Yeah.
And then that's when he's pretty much made a 180 or a 360, sorry. And now he takes up this path of advocating for mental health
Mm-hmm.
instead of pursuing like furthering this stardom that he built a rocket ship for.
Don't forget, with stardom, it also helps him with having an audience and a platform.
Right.
And it's like kind of one of those things, like, let's say he stays playing, that does help keep people engaged with you and your message more relevant, or at least more in the face of other folks, just because he continues to play or whatever, because there comes a point where it's like, we've all seen it, celebrity or sports star or whatever, they retire, they're obviously doing stuff, it's like, oh, they're still doing things,
Right.
but like you don't really hear about it as much unless something like really big gets started or something like that, or they start to do the little media circuit, which is like go on to talk shows and discuss like what it is they've been working on or whatever. But while the stars on the field, on the court, whatever, right? Um, they're relevant every time they step out and they play their game, and then they talk to the press after, So there is a power of him also staying, and maybe he chooses to only talk about mental health anytime he talks
Maybe
publicly.
you know we see the social media change happening that is like directly reflective of his what's happening in his inner self. Like you could be posting all this stuff about like him on planes, champagne showers, these extravagant places. Then it turns to like motivational stuff. And whenever you make because obviously his initial following was built off of all the extravagant lifestyle stuff, right? And then he makes a 180. Uh, and whenever you make a change like that, people. people don't like it, right?
Yeah.
People might look at that and call him like cheesy, call him a cornball.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier, but there's a big UFC fight tonight, and there's two guys that are fighting each other who are actually really big advocates of mental health. And actually, as coincidental as this is, one of the bigger stars in there, his friend actually committed suicide, and he talked about it
Mm-hmm.
at his last fight, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he said after his friend committed suicide, he started having similar thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
now this is all coming back to me because I've been watching this, following all their promotions and stuff the entire week. But he pretty much said, like, in one of the short vlog series, he's talking to a therapist or whatever. She's telling him to like continue spreading the message about mental health, blah blah, and all that. And he keeps spreading that men go talk to somebody if you need help. He keeps saying that uh, someone messaging him because of what he did in his post fight interview last time. He got like floods of messages of people watching that told him that they saved his life or whatever. And actually, in one
Mm-hmm.
of the vlogs, a fan came up to him and said, thank you for that message. You actually saved my life. And then, uh, the guy, he has this charismatic and eccentric personality, but he's real because that starts. You could see him start tearing up after that fan came up to him and he said, those types of moments mean more to me than like winning inside, winning my
Mm-hmm.
fight and stuff like that. So it could be,
That's a great point that he ends up finding he ends up helping more folks than he thought he would.
yeah, we could end it where, he, UFC fighter is called Paddy the Baddy, by the way, for anyone wondering. Um, he, he, maybe in the end, he shares his thoughts about mental health, tells people to go get help if they need it. Don't be afraid to reach out to him. Maybe stuff like that if they need it. Maybe starts helping, fans through DMs, like sending messages back and forth. He's at a place somewhere. He could be at an event um, around him or around something, or he could be at a coffee shop just getting his coffee. But someone comes up to him, says thank you to him because of his
Mm-hmm.
messages that he's been sharing, that he saved his life because this person was contemplating suicide prior to hearing Anthony's message.
Okay.
Now it's an interesting arc in our character story because he thought he once failed his friend.
Yeah.
Now this is like a redemption. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's filled in his mind. He's balanced. He's made good for his quote unquote failure of his friend, even though in reality it's not entirely his fault.
Right. Or at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
okay.
Not at all. Right. Right.
So we're pretty much just making this the outline of the story. And I mean, when we get to that part, I think we pretty much have what we need. Let's just really, let's get the friend down at least.
All
And
right,
like,
friend. Um, Jason, Jeremy, Freddy. I don't know.
Jason the murderer. Um,
Freddy Krueger.
yeah, so you said Jason. I'm here thinking of like Jason.
I know that's why I
Um,
said Freddy after it. I was like, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers.
It's a name I don't hear that often. Henry.
Henry. All right, Henry.
Henry needs a last name, I think. We may use it, we may not, but
Henry. Henry Johnson. Henry Williams.
the most common, or one of the most common names. Williams Johnson Smith.
Henry Williams Smith. One of those hyphenated last names.
Henry
David.
Henry Hall. Henry Walker.
Henry Walker. I mean, could do that.
I feel like Henry Moore.
Henry Moore?
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, we can roll with that. Henry
I
Moore.
won't bother with an age and ethnicity, but Henry Moore.
Henry Moore.
I guess we can get slightly into like he's not a protagonist, but and maybe we do find out towards the end, or maybe the realization. You know, I was gonna say let's put a reason why, but I don't know if there ever really is a reason why that satisfies. Like, I feel like there's multiple things, and at the end of the day, it's kind of like a unresolved
Satisfied
feeling.
what?
Yeah, of like life and purpose.
I mean, it's just like a subjective thing,
Yeah.
It's just like
I
different.
don't think it really matters why so much. So, like, it matters why, but because he's not a protagonist either. And just for the sake of Anthony's character, answering the question why will probably never satisfy. No matter what you say, it's always like, but.
Oh, it's just one of those things where he's like,
if we could have just gotten this, or get him to this, or get him to realize this, or whatever, like, it's always met with like,
well, it's just
I
one
hear
of
what
those
you're
things
saying, but
where where the character thought they wanted one thing, they wanted all the benefits of being a star soccer player, star athlete, celebrity, right? They thought they were loving it, and then because of what happened to his friend, pushes him to this other
Oh,
path.
you're talking about Anthony's reason.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're talking about his friend.
Yeah. I was saying maybe we don't dive too deep into there.
Yeah, I don't think we need to. We can just keep that vague for now. It could be, it could just be that he's just feeling depressed, and sometimes the reason for that for everyone is a little different.
Yeah.
It literally could be brain chemicals. Like,
Right.
sometimes that is literally the reason. With that, so
all right. I think we're in a place to where we can start building an outline, and then we'll add.
And I think ideas
details.
will come.
Yeah.
Details will come as we.
By the way, I made Anthony Lee a forward as his position.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So we could start.
Where should we start this story? Huh? On the field.
I think we should set the tone where he's like, uh, maybe like he finds his friend literally passed out or something. Hey, his friend OD'd. He like walks in and
Mm.
sees his friend there at his place or something, like lying unconscious on the floor with a bottle of pills next to him.
Well, how do we play the contrast? That starts us off in like we're right in the meat and potatoes, sort of, in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like we could build this.
Not a bad idea.
We could build this roller coaster where now he's working. Now he's working his way up.
Kevin, what it is we take that idea. There's a couple ways it can be done, right? One is you can have it where a flashback, okay, whatever, or you can have it where that's happening as a friend's taking the getting ready, or the friend is finding out that this has happened. So, excuse me, maybe Anthony's finding out what's going on with Henry as he's in the locker room getting ready to go to a game. So that way you have what you're saying
Mm.
and the juxtaposition of like he needs to like he's supposed to be focusing on getting prepared for his game and like
Yeah,
performing at the top level, but now this is also running in the back of his head,
yeah,
or maybe the forefront of his head.
he sees a text from Anthony's mom, and maybe it's usually he gets it's his best friend. He sees his family as his family too.
Yeah,
Henry's family as his family
Henry's
too.
family. Yeah,
So maybe he was like, "Oh, this is just Henry's mom wishing me good luck," but it's actually Henry's in the hospital right now. He overdosed,
right.
or
Yeah,
it could be this could be an attempt, or the thing could actually have happened already.
right. Well, okay. I don't think it should happen just yet, as it would be nice to see them interact.
Right.
So let's just say, all right,
He's in the hospital.
Anthony. Well, let's do it from the point of view of Anthony first here. Anthony is getting ready
String up his cleats.
for a game.
String up his cleats. He's doing his visualization of him putting the ball in the net. Um, here's a buzz. Bzz, bzz.
That's
Next to
right.
him, sees it's from Henry's mom. Just in his phone is Henry's mom.
Yeah,
Mrs. Moore. Sorry. Forgot Henry had a
Henry's
last name.
mom. I mean, hey, it could be just Henry's mom. Sees here's a buzz. Sees
sees a
a
text. Henry's
notification
mom.
from Henry's mom.
He opens it.
It could be like call ASAP or something like that too, or call back. You think it should be just a text message, or like Henry's in the hospital?
Okay, so now you've opened up two ways it could go. It could
Right,
be
because
something uh like curiosity invoking, like something's happened to Henry. I will I'll tell you after the game or something, and then after the game that's when he finds out everything. Or it could be
mhm.
actual thing. She just tells him straight up what's happened.
I think it would be something like, yeah, the message could be give me a quick call. He calls, and then now it's from the point of view of Mrs. Moore at the hospital, relaying to him that he's in the hospital, he overdoses, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so it
all life
says something
support,
like
whatever.
"Hey
And
Anthony,
it's like a
can you
conversation, right?
be
So
like hey Anthony, can you give me a quick call when you can?"
right, yeah, when you can, like just be respectful.
Yeah. So does he call her right away?
Yeah.
Okay. I completely filled up my board last time. I had no room to write towards the end, so I'm trying to write smaller, or at least like write
Write down
less
just
detail.
the yeah.
He calls her, say, "Hey, Mrs. Moore, what's going on?" And she's one of those where one of those moms where she's like, "Oh, how are you, Anthony?" He's like, "Oh," they have like a light
Well,
conversation at first. It's just
remember, she's probably stressed out, man.
okay, true, but
So, she probably is just like, I don't know what you're doing right now. I just wanted you to know as soon as possible, et cetera, et cetera,
well, I feel like she definitely knows he has a game. Like, let's just say, like our main character is just like a star. So if she's following him, she knows.
Something tells me that these parents, especially it's not their kid, but like they are, like they know I feel like there's a certain level of like, oh yeah, he's a star, but like I've known this boy since he was a child. Like
Yeah. So
he has games
she.
all the time. Like I don't know, his game might be tomorrow, might be today, it
Well, I
might have
feel like
happened.
she loves him enough as her own son that she's just follows everything that he does. So maybe it's like
Yeah.
maybe it's like, hey, I know you have a game. Maybe she doesn't know when the game starts.
But we don't even need to dive into that level of detail
I know it's just
unless we're writing a script.
I know it's just fun to talk about, just for mood purposes.
Yeah. I think
Maybe she's like, I know you have a game soon. She doesn't know exactly when, right? But she knows he has a game that day.
yeah.
Um, so maybe she's like, I know you have a game soon, but I just wanted to let you know that Henry's in the hospital. We found him back home, uh, unconscious in his room, with like a bottle of pills laying beside him.
Mm.
So right now he's in critical condition. We'll call it
Yeah.
critical condition.
And moving it from there, it's like, obviously Anthony's devastated. Um, he could ask some questions, but we're not writing a script there. The main point is that the message has been communicated to him.
Or maybe he does
It
want to talk
impacts him.
more, but because she called him right when the game's about to start, they're
Yeah,
telling him
like
to go out, and
exactly.
oh, all right, Mrs.
The
Moore,
coach comes in and tells him like, "Hey, we're about to be ready in 5. We're going to take the pitch soon."
or he's like, where the hell are you? Like, you need to go do warm ups or something. We're doing warm ups now. Get out there. Um, and they're maybe Henry's like,
He know what he should do, just like to make it brief in a sense, but he should tell her as soon as he's done with his game, right? He'll
he'll come by. He'll swing by
he'll
the
come
hospital.
by, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
or come as soon as he can.
Yeah.
As soon as he can, the coach can come in and be like, "Hey, get ready. We're taking the field in 5." Um,
But
All right.
this is like an
So
interesting point where we see, might be getting a little too deep into this now, but where we see like the character struggling with what he wants, right? His career,
yeah,
soccer, right? So maybe it's not like in his mind as a priority to show up for his friend right now because he has a game to play.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, that could be.
Again, that's
It
more
could be.
towards like a script. That'd be more
Right.
important for a script, but it's
That
just
would be like the back and forth between like what mood does it set
right,
for him? Like, yeah, he's sad, devastated about it, but what takes more precedent in his life, right?
right.
Is he going to show up on that pitch, or is he going to be like, I'm not playing this game? You know, does he turn around and walk out? Who
Right.
knows? But
But we see like what's more important to him in the beginning right now.
or is he forced to play? You know, is some kind of other, you know, he wants to walk out and some another circumstance comes and levies itself on top, and then he's like, all right, I kind of have to play this game.
Coaches like the mob has put a lot of money on you to score a goal, so you got to go out there and play a game, or else they're gonna kidnap my family. No, but
all right, so you have to take the field in five, and then there's this dilemma that potentially we have. But let's just say, you know, Anthony does take the field for this version, maybe, and has a what kind of game does he have, Kevin? An off game, a decent game, a great game.
no, I think he has an off game until he scores, and then that just
The
makes
adrenaline,
him go deeper into this route of him thinking soccer is life
yeah,
because he's getting all this admiration from his fans, blah blah, press.
yeah,
It's driving him deeper into what he thinks he wants. Because at this point, he doesn't know that being an advocate for mental health is his true fulfillment yet, right? Right now, he just thinks soccer is life.
right. So it's like he's going to pour all of his being into it, makes him more focused, and he's going to pour all of his energy into playing the greatest game ever because he thinks
Yeah,
somehow
because
that's going to
he
like
can
make
justify
him
in his
feel
head
better.
too. Like
Right,
this is for Henry.
right. It's like it's kind of like it's the justification, like it's that mental thing of like, yeah, if I have the best game ever, then everything else will be like get better, right?
Yeah, it
So he has that kind of
makes him
mindset,
kind of feel less guilty about not being there for his friend, sort of. That's like his excuse. He's like, this game is for my friend in his head. He doesn't have to say it
right?
publicly.
Right. All right. So game ends. You know, he hops on a plane or whatever. I'm just assuming that the game is not in the same location where his friend is, um, state wise or whatever, and then flies over. Right? Okay. Anthony flies over to be with his friend. Cool. Fast forward, arrives at the hospital.
Day after, visiting
Oh no.
hours can only go for so long.
But what if? But what if? What if he's the kind of person that gets there and wants to fight them on that? And because of his stardom, after a little bit back and forth, they're like, "For you, Anthony." I mean,
Oh, maybe they're major fans of him. So
yeah, you know,
he
maybe say,
uses
"Listen, I'll turn my head this way, and you just walk."
he
You know,
uses his swag, his game to persuade the nurses to let him through.
yeah, you know,
All right.
because then it also helps reinforce that he's a big deal,
Right. All right. That's
right?
true.
He doesn't want to let him in after visiting hours, but the nurses.
They're like, "You played such a great game." Maybe they were watching the game because I know that those nurses sitting at the desk, they're not looking at charts all day. But shout out to all the nurses who are. I just know that most of them, some of them, I'm not going to say most, some I've seen with my own eyes are looking at other stuff. So maybe, they're just watching the game too in the meantime while monitoring their floor.
Yeah, but they'll let him go by. So either way, he gets by. He gets by
Right.
on his stardom, right? All right. He finds Henry's
Room.
room, and do we want Henry to be conscious, or do we want him to be sedated? Is there a conversation potentially that could be had with Anthony to a person that's not able to reply?
I think maybe the conversation should happen the next day and he just gets Henry's
Falls
mom just
asleep
fills
there.
him in on everything, maybe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's more like just to, in spirit, be there, see, lay eyes on him.
Yeah.
Okay. Lays eye on him. Yeah, Henry is in a bad state.
Or he could be stable by the time he gets there. He was in a bad state when Anthony started
Okay,
the game. Now he's stable.
I'm cool with that. Stable, but resting or whatever.
Yeah. Because,
Um,
we do want them to interact kind of right before
yeah.
that story takes
Um,
a turn for the worst. So he's getting
but
better.
like,
He should be getting better.
should Anthony sleep in the room, and then
Uh
in the morning, Henry's mom shows up and they have that conversation?
no, I think he's got this nice cushy apartment now and he's living he's in this the celebrity life. So he goes home. Let's say he pops in,
Mm-hmm.
has a quick conversation with Henry's mom. Looks at Henry.
Oh, because Henry's mom's still there,
Yeah,
huh?
they're sleeping there, the parents. Then he's like, all right, I'll be back tomorrow. Um, so he goes back to his apartment, his penthouse, high rise, whatever. Then he shows up the next day. Now Henry's awake.
Mhm.
And at first, Anthony wants to berate him for, trying to commit suicide because he's talked him off the ledge plenty of times before. But he consoles him, says he's happy he's okay. And then he starts saying, why? Like, I thought we were on the right path, blah, blah, blah. Thought we were making progress. Um, don't, maybe he says, since Henry's parents are in the room, maybe Anthony says to Henry's like, can't you see, like, we care about you. Like, what? Like, have you ever thought about what would happen?
Yeah.
How we would feel if you actually died?
And I feel from Henry's point of view, right? He'll probably just keep saying he's sorry,
Yeah.
probably break down, whatever.
Yep.
I also think that there's potentially, a moment when Anthony goes back to his apartment. Yeah, we see he's living well, etc. But we also see, pictures of them as youngsters. Maybe they used to play together.
Yeah, they played soccer together up
And
until high
until it
school.
got
Yeah.
real. Youngsters playing together, but more than that, we also have a chance to see Anthony's mindset about this whole thing. He hasn't really decompressed, and now he's in his house, and he has a moment to decompress. And
Maybe
however way that might look for him,
he uses all the admiration, likes, and comments from social media to kind of escape this like feeling that his best friend just tried to commit suicide. He kind of like he just uses it as an escape, sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean, he could be decompressing, still be stressed out, and just be on his living on his phone, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's kind of like maybe more so a mechanism to not have to think about it.
Right. So he after he
We
confronts
already
Henry,
have him after he's done what?
after he confronts Henry,
Yeah.
let's say, pretty soon after Henry gets discharged, blah blah. He has to get just a follow up with a psychiatrist for a few sessions to talk about it. Anthony also tells his friend to, hey, I know we don't talk that much anymore because of soccer, but if you ever feel like you need someone to talk to, just reach out. I'm here for you. Just give me a call, text, whatever. Like seriously, like do it. Like if you ever feel like you're uncomfortable or something is on your mind.
So what you're basically saying, well, so Henry's journey is leaving the hospital. I would even say just that way it's not so much. We have our protagonist, but Henry, starts to get better. They, Anthony visits him. The psychologist shows up to the hospital. And then we just so we could kind of see that interaction and kind of get out of the way with Henry at least. But he ends up leaving the hospital, and then we have this kind of conversation of now Anthony needs to return for a game or for whatever, and it's I'm not going to be around as much anymore again, right? Because he has stuff to do. But again, if you need anything,
Yeah. I think since just to keep it brief, through dialogue we could see how get a glimpse of what their relationship used to be, and kind of that it's sort of drifting apart because of Anthony's desire and passion to play soccer, right? Because that's his
yeah.
career right now.
This conversation, by the way, could take place. They leave the hospital there. This conversation could take place. Maybe they go to a soccer field just to have some fun together.
Yeah. Maybe they go to
And
their
they end up, the high school one or whatever.
college one or something.
Yeah.
Go to the college field. They're kicking the ball back and forth. Talking about good old days when they played with each other on this very same field. Obviously, there's a vast difference in their skill. Anthony's a star. Henry is an intern somewhere. I don't know. At a 9 to 5.
This man says he's at 7-Eleven.
Oh, he's a barista at a coffee shop, and that's where Anthony. That's where Anthony always gets his coffee from when he visits Henry when he's in town.
All right, so we get to this point, they have this conversation. Anthony reminds him there's always a phone call away. But now Anthony has to leave. Hey, so that we can go from this, right? So Anthony has to leave. He returns to practice or his main field, whatever. And the coach calls him in, or the GM.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a little unsure how these things work, but I'm assuming that there's like a trade, or maybe there's not a trade, but this other team has to put an offer out.
Yeah, I think the way it works in soccer or football, I believe, is that they can. I tried to read into this before because I thought it was very interesting because teams can lend players to other teams.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
They can lend players and they could trade or sell contracts. Basically, it's like they own stock of this player or something.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. So maybe they do lend him.
Okay.
There's a team in Europe that needs a forward. So the Stamford Ducks have to lend Anthony's contract to
where's he going?
To Real Madrid. Manchester United.
I feel like I have to say Liverpool. A couple of my buddies, if I don't put Liverpool in here, they might come after me.
All right, fine. He has to go to Liverpool.
I would say this would probably, Anthony is excited about this.
This is what he's been working for.
Yeah, and he can, show his skills to a more diverse audience, let's say.
Global audience.
Global audience, there you go.
So he leaves, he goes there.
And his life has to really start to take off.
Yeah,
Because then he's posting on social media, high life, the champagne life.
right. He's living the high life.
Anthony's
This
life
is a
takes off.
big money league now. He's getting recognized by celebrities.
Right.
Drake and Snoop Dogg. He's partying with them. He's flying private. Surrounded by beautiful women in Europe.
And he's, again, just bringing in that social media, posting all of this. Right. I'm just going to do a quick check on where we are with our words, because we need to make sure. We already did telephone. We had a telephone conversation.
Yep.
We had competing.
Yep.
Competition in the beginning. Unfortunate. I mean,
this whole story is unfortunate.
The whole story is unfortunate. We still have like card and prayer. Just putting it out there. Card. Maybe he's living this champagne life, whatever. We see him swiping his cards all over the place.
Someone swiped his card.
It goes from a basic card to that nice was it American Express Platinum?
Yeah, or maybe he it's not normal in today's world, but he sends like a nice postcard to.
Yeah, what's the other option?
To Anthony and his family, to Henry and his family from Europe. Because obviously
right.
Henry and his family are happy for Anthony. They're the little boy they've known their entire life in the big leagues now. That's always a big thing,
That's right. All right. So he's living. That's actually a nice reminder, right? See, life takes off. I put it as living the champagne life. Celebrities know who he is. He's posting this on social media in his private jets and so on. But still takes the time to send Henry and the family a postcard.
Right.
Hoping that he's doing well. Hoping that everyone's doing well. All right. So now we gave him.
Well, not just a postcard. He's living high life now, so he sends them like a huge package or whatever of stuff, whatever that might be.
A whole bunch of gear,
autograph gear, gift cards to expensive restaurants. I don't know.
Nah, man, he got the mom. What's that company that did something silly? Balenciaga.
Oh,
I think they had something to do with people were saying child abuse.
they were posting. They made an ad campaign full of like sexualized image of children with like teddy bears.
You saw it? I didn't see this.
I saw some photos and I was like, "What is this?"
Well, I know that they're in trouble.
Yeah, it was literally like kids playing with teddy bears and like bondage and stuff. It was like, what?
The kids were?
The teddy bears were like in bondage, and the kids were
like holding it, playing with them,
or like in the picture.
Whose idea was this? Well, that's another conversation.
That's another conversation. But when I first saw that, I was like, these are supposed to be the quote unquote smartest people in marketing and ads. They sit in a room and this is what they come up with. Like, what is this?
It's just in the race to be who can put on more nonsense.
Well, they're paying for it.
So now they're paying for it, exactly. Yeah,
that's what they get for making something that it goes against common sense.
I wasn't going to buy it anyways. Not that I don't buy designer stuff anyway, but yeah, that's. He sends them. Did something happen with? I feel like something has happened with all these brands. Like, Dolce Gabbana did something,
No, I have no idea. I
or
don't know.
was it Gucci? I don't know. One of them. They all do. They all get in trouble for something that they've done.
Sends
But
them
he
nice
sends them nice.
designers.
Yeah.
Gets them all
Um,
Rolexes.
there you go. I haven't heard anything about Rolex. Yeah, I forgot about
Everyone
that.
gets a Rolex. You want a Rolex, you get a Rolex.
Yeah, there you go.
Gets them all Lambos.
That's not even a good gift sometimes, man. That's a curse. People may not be ready to pay the taxes on those things
Mm,
and all the other stuff and maintenance and all that stuff.
that's
I
true. At
always
least
wonder
Rolex.
when people buy like these expensive cars as gifts, like it could be a real pain and a headache for folks who can't take that on, like me. Um,
Because
though,
at least
Kevin, if you were
Rolex.
planning on giving me a Lambo, please do. Don't worry, I'll just sell it.
At least Rolexes could go up in value. It
That's true.
appreciates instead of depreciates.
All right, so he gives them all this stuff. He sends them a card along with it. All right, so we got card. Unfortunate prayer. That'll come in a little bit later. So now we have this, just like any good story, we had the beginning where we kind of started off low, but we showed like the juxtaposition of like his life is doing well, yet his friend's life isn't. Then we showed their friendship and kind of like how close they are over the years, right? They have a conversation. You see that you get the sense that they've known each other since childhood, right? Okay, and so now, and you think everything is good, right? Friend is out receiving help, let's say.
No, they're chatting
Anthony's
back and
life,
forth. Everything. They're
yeah.
FaceTiming. Things
But
look
now
good.
we gotta throw it back into the lower
That's right.
gear, right?
We have,
So
we have to ruin our character's life just for the purpose of story.
I think it may be the time for Mr. Moore to depart.
Yep.
So how are we going to do this? Um, I would assume there's traumatic ways of doing this, like ultra traumatic, and then there's just traumatic. There's like his friend. I don't really think it's statistically what would happen, but there is a dramatization to it instead of a realism. But Henry could contact him, thank him for his friendship. This has happened to some folks. I don't think it's as common, but it has happened where some folks have like it's positive, but it's kind of like they're wrapping up conversations that they need to wrap up with in the sense like thank you for the gift, thank you for your friendship. I just want to say I appreciate you, blah blah, right? On the surface level, it seems like all right, this is just a nice gesture and some nice words. But from Henry's point of view, it could be kind of like closure.
Like a
But
goodbye.
Anthony, yeah, a goodbye. But Anthony doesn't know that at the time.
Right. So it's like we come into this middle part of the story where things are just going up. They're talking. Everything seems good on the surface. Anthony is killing it in Europe.
Yeah,
He's living up to.
and we just sent off these gifts and all this stuff. So Anthony could be thinking that he's giving him a call because to thank him for being a good friend, for sending these gifts, and that's a way to kind of mask the intent from Henry, at least.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
okay.
think just to put a fork in the road for our character and make him choose. I think the story progresses, and the lending, the the duration of his temporary contract with the team is coming up, and they want
Mm,
to. He's been killing it, so they want to renew it.
mm,
They want to take
mm,
him
mm,
permanently
mm,
from the Stanford Ducks,
mm.
and
Okay.
now he gets the call, another call from or a text from Henry's mom.
Oh, okay. You say so. This is after the fact, after the initial call with Henry. Anthony has just
Yeah,
so yeah, because it'll come across as like a light thing. Okay, so that happened. Anthony's contract is up or coming up. He's going back. So you're basically saying to pull him under even more, send him back to the U.S.
well, I'm making him choose now. Like this
Okay.
is where he has to come to terms with what's important to him, because I think this is where the hammer gets laid down on him that Henry's gone, um, and it just hits him so hard that he's like, "Damn,
I will say part of the what we didn't really, and that's fine, for now. But just for anyone listening, like part of what also drives a protagonist is their decisions, right? And I think that's what you're getting towards, Kevin. We made it this far without Anthony has made certain decisions, but like if we were doing a secondary cleanup, we would have to make Anthony make more definitive decisions instead of things just happening to him, especially like him going overseas. You know, he has to be given, like, yeah, the opportunity is given, and then he has to be the one to take it. So I'm just verbally saying that 'cause that's an important detail, and you're reminding me now of it as you're saying there's a fork in the road, and he has to make the decision. Those decisions is what kind of helps demonstrate character development. What
yeah,
kind of decisions does he make? Yeah. So I just want to put that out there for everyone listening.
yeah,
Um,
exactly." And this is where we see like the turning point on him becoming. There's two heroes' journeys.
yeah,
This is the inner journey, right? There's the outer journey.
yeah,
He's kind of reached it at the pinnacle, and now this is the inner journey of himself. Sometimes that'll come at a sacrifice of the outer journey of what
yeah,
he's done. And so, as we talked about before, he becomes a mental health advocate, and this is just the turning point in that happening. Um, he gets a call from Henry's mom saying that Henry's gone, saying
yeah,
that it's not Anthony's fault, it's no one's fault.
yeah,
Um, Anthony did all he can, all he could have, right? And and this, this, I guess Anthony just like in his head, or he might have set it aside or ignored it because he didn't want to feel those feelings that he probably thought this was never going
okay,
to happen.
okay. It also, just, I mean, I think I think that works. I think also like sometimes like if this was being made for the screen, let's say, like there could be multiple subcontexts, and like also I feel like something like this would be paralyzing to where maybe he also doesn't know what to feel and say, and so that's why he kind of sets it aside, right? Um, what I'm thinking of is how do we merge? Should that happen first before a decision about? I feel like it kind. we had to discuss that. Does it happen first before the decision about where to continue his efforts as far as playing? Does the option? Um,
Yeah, I think it should come up at around the same time, and he maybe just loses because of this event. He just loses his will to play because he grew up playing with Henry for they grew up playing soccer together.
yeah,
So maybe he's just playing the game just reminds him of his friend. Um, uh, maybe. Hmm. I'm thinking maybe this this drives him to put out a message on social media. Maybe this is when he starts. He puts out a message on hey, if you ever need help with anything, talk to somebody. Um, Maybe he puts out the
yeah.
story that he makes public that his best friend is gone.
I
And
think. Do we? Oh, I see what you're saying. He puts out the message in order to get towards. Well, hold on. So would people on social media? Because we also had the idea of him also, Anthony also becoming depressed and so on, and having suicidal thoughts. So
yeah, we had that.
we had discussed like, do we want to keep that, or do we want to?
Um, I we can keep that. It'll become a longer story.
Yeah, that for
Um,
sure.
so we might have to breeze over
But
some.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. My thing is this. All right, if we didn't bring that element in, I think the story would still work. I think if we were to do like a second, this is like the first outline, right? But if we were to do a second draw, like say if we were writing for a film or something, we would have to focus more on making sure we illustrate the relationship between Henry and Anthony
Yeah.
even more. Yeah, but it's fine. But this,
Well, no, we
as everyone watches, we're talking about the process of like where you could take a story and what ramifications that means that what you would have to do in order to make it work.
I think we can keep it. We just have to keep it pretty brief.
Yeah,
Um, and just talk about the key events that happened during this downfall instead of going into
yeah.
detail.
All right. So let's just say, all right. Anthony gets a call from Miss Moore. Henry has passed on. She takes on a consoling role, let's say. But all right, we got that. Um, Anthony is shocked and paralyzes. Word. I kind of like the way that you brought up that fork in the road after.
It's like when two it's like the when like two things when something good pops up, a bad thing pops up, right? At the same time
Yeah,
sometimes. This is kind of like a similar thing.
yeah,
It's like his contract is coming to an end. The team wants to keep him as a permanent member.
right.
It's a big contract, and then at the same time he gets a call from his friend's mom that his best friend's gone.
Yeah,
So it kind of
Okay.
puts him in a reflective situation where he has to pretty much choose a path. And if we're going to go down the route where we see the sudden, like the um the downfall, can't think of words right now, the downfall of our main character, um he should try to do what he's doing now, which is continually try to mask it with
Mm.
all the success that he has, but his inside is falling apart, right? All the materialistic stuff, vanity stuff, is not helping him on the inside, but he wants to try to find solace in those external things. So maybe he feels like he should be there home, but
Yeah.
he agrees to the contract, thinking
Is
it'll
this kind of like? So you think the contract should be like an extension,
an extension for the rest of the season.
something like that?
Extension for the rest of the season, however soccer contracts work.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole. I'm sure that we're already pissing off a lot of people, but that's another thing. If after having an outline to go in and research how they actually work and then make it pair up more, better with real life.
Right.
But
And it's fiction.
the main thing is just to get the main idea out there, which is he's going to stay.
Yeah. So he decides to stay. Continues playing, but we see maybe his performance on the field starts to go down, right? Because he's not mentally there.
Yeah.
He's not mentally the same person right now.
His performance starts to go down, which causes backlash from fans and reporters, etc.
I don't know if they do this, but we can make it go as far as the team's unhappy with his performance, so they cut him.
Well, we could do that. Backlash from fans and reporters,
saying, "Is the hype train gone?"
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we can come up with all sorts of headliners. This causes him to further become depressed and not play well. Eventually, he gets cut.
He gets cut.
Now
he's back to square one.
Yeah. He's teamless cut. And returns.
Goes back to his old team in the U.S.
To the U.S. Well, let's make him work a little bit, Kev. All right. His teamless has to return to the U.S. He goes to speak with them, and maybe they just put him on the practice, right? Because they also see too that he's not the same. They're trying to win too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some kind of club they care for him, but they might not let him play a game so soon. Maybe he's on the bench. Maybe he starts on the bench.
Yeah. All right. He
So
goes
yeah, we
from
could do that. He goes to his old club, and they bring him back, but he will be on the bench, and his playing time is low. So now we kick the man into the dirt. He already got beaten up. Well, he was living a good life. Unfortunately, his best pal passed on, and
Yep.
the rest of his life began to crumble around him. Okay. I'm sure there's a whole lot of cleanup that could take place in there, but we get the gist of where it's headed,
Main
right?
big ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole life crumbles, right? Okay. So now, gotta build the man back up. And he could do this through part of it is his foundations of playing, his mental foundations, and maybe his foundations around you know what? I had this little thing I put in there. I didn't say it out loud, but I just said something quick just so I know it's there. It's like Anthony goes to the funeral, right? But doesn't know how to interact. Maybe it's awake, and Anthony does a quick prayer, whispered to Henry.
Mm,
And we can incorporate prayer. I only say that because we can incorporate prayer as we can also incorporate as he's building back up. And then the film takes on more of a spiritual overtone. And my only thing is, well, and we can do that on another pass through. We would want to incorporate that spirituality in other ways. So that way, by the time we reach it, and at this portion of the story, it feels more organic instead of forced.
right.
But that's just something to put out.
Yeah, we kind of still need to incorporate prayer. That could be his prayer. He could also be praying to himself
Yeah,
to find something that's more fulfilling because maybe he's not getting the same satisfaction
yeah.
from playing
Don't
soccer.
forget, you don't have to pray once. You can pray multiple times.
That's
So
true.
let's say goes awake, he doesn't interact. Instead, he says a prayer to Henry. That only he or his spirit can hear. If we were writing dialogue, that prayer would matter a lot to pin that down and make
Yeah.
it emotional, relevant, and express all the things it needs to express. Now, okay, back to him being on the bench and playtime low. Now he has to rebuild, but before we have him rebuild, we're not. So let's just make a decision. We're not going to do his suicidal arc. I don't think we really need to in order
No,
to,
we don't really need
because
to.
we're beating him down here. This man is getting kicked.
See, I was gonna make his old club. I was gonna have it so his old club cuts him. I didn't say this out loud, but I had in mind that old club cuts him, and now
Yeah.
he's the head coach of a U13 girls soccer team. From star player to middle school girls soccer coach.
All right. That's one heck of a drop.
Things can change in such a short period of time.
That's a crazy drop, but yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, but we already beat this man down enough.
Yeah, no, this poor man. So what we can do instead is,
He starts opening up. Something compels
yeah,
him to start opening up about some of this stuff. because he's been
he
rather
starts
quiet.
discussing this. Yeah.
Maybe he's one of those guys that like posts. He used to be one of those guys that posts Instagram, social media stories all day about his
Again,
stuff,
yeah, just a champagne life, but now he's going to start posting more.
and he's gone quiet since all this, his downfalls happened. Maybe not posting at all. His social media has been crickets. Right, so now he make his comeback. And he starts sharing some of this stuff that he's been going through.
Right, and not to mention, it probably would be probably hit the press because like downfall, no one knows really what's going on. He's not really saying anything. Goes on the hiatus, returns with something that's more, real to the situation. He would probably, gain support from that.
Yeah, he'll get a mixture.
Well, in real life, yeah. But I'll just put a small note like he gained support from his followers. And then, Anthony, again, he has to do everything he has to do, right? He does all the things that he told his buddy to do, right? Seeks help.
Yep.
Lives on the field. Practice. Continues to share.
Yeah, he's more consistent in sharing stuff. His message,
Personal stuff, yeah.
His brand is more geared towards this mental health stuff.
Right. Continues to share mental health stuff. And so basically all this stuff would need to happen, right? So like, all right, you get the idea. He's seeking help, he's practicing, he's continuing to share mental health stuff, he's rebuilding, right? Now we could have him be, start again for the US team, and he gets like all the love, standing ovation. When they say his name, when he steps onto the field, and it's like everyone, it's like they're cheering on him becoming, like, coming back, he steps onto the field and they cheer and applaud his return. Or yeah, he's been there, but it's like he wasn't playing, and no one really understood where he was coming from either, right? So it's like now they understand. His fans understand. The fans of the team understand.
Yeah, or maybe he could literally, he could have been playing the whole time, or he could have just excused himself from the team, without.
Actually, yeah, that probably makes more sense. So,
and he just didn't make it public as to why.
Right. Because we had this thing where it's like he goes to the club, they bring him back, but he's on the bench. But let's just say, they bring him back, but he
takes a hiatus.
He won't be in the games.
He'll be sitting himself out for undisclosed reasons to the public.
Right. Okay. Steps on the field for the first time in a long time, and they cheer and applaud his return, etc. But I still want to bring in that idea that you had said, where he gets thanked. He could have a great game, As he's walking off the field, someone rushes him as he's about to
Yeah.
go into the tunnel, and they're like, "Help me!" The security's trying to pull him back. He's like, "No, like let the man talk, let the person talk." And the person tells him like, "You helped me so much. You know what I mean?"
You saved my life. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right. I think we
And
can. We can take this from the top, tell the story from beginning to end, and then we'll see what our artificial intelligence counterpart comes up with. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about this story.
because now we're going to recap. And it goes without saying that everything that we're going to recap is something that
We're not,
definitely needs some more polish, without a doubt. I think as we got further along, other ideas started to come out that would need to be reinforced, or at least brought up in the beginning stages, just so that way it has impact, it lands impact later on. But it's part of the process, and everyone here is along for that ride.
the 5 words that we were given: Ricard, compete, unfortunate, prayer, and telephone. Our job was to create a functional story, incorporating those 5 words either as themes or actual words within the story. We went all over the place, from dark organized crime action thriller to we landed on a wholesome story that kind of has a good message to it. And obviously, as you're listening to this, there are things that could be added. There's details to make some of these things, these scenes, a lot better and more impactful. But mind you, we're trying to create something from scratch in one sitting. I don't think any great screenplays have ever been written
Right.
in a single sitting on the first draft. So this is our shot at it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think I'll start, and then you could do the middle since you have more. I think you have a more better grasp of that with the wake and stuff, and then we can end it. Okay, so
Sure.
story starts off with
Go
our
ahead. Yeah.
our star soccer player Anthony Lee. He's in the locker room, stringing up his cleats, doing his visualization exercises. He hears a crowd outside going wild, maybe chanting his name. He hears a bzz, bzz, a sound from his phone, looks over. It's his best friend's Henry's mom. And, he's known Henry and his family since he was younger. So they're practically family themselves. So, as usual, he probably thinks it's Henry's mom wishing him a good luck, as she usually does before his games. He picks up the phone, sees a text. Henry's mom says, "Call me as soon as you can." So he has a few minutes before he leaves to the pitch. So he gives her a call. And Henry's mom tells Anthony that Henry is in critical condition. He's in the hospital. Henry has had a history of depression and has been struggling with his mental health. And this time he actually tried to commit suicide, but they were able to find him in time, get him transported to the hospital, and now he's in his hospital bed, unconscious, but he's breathing still. So Anthony, it's a big game for him. He wants to talk more. He wants to learn more details, but he has a game to play, right? Maybe the coach comes in, tells him, Lee, you got to get out there, on the warm ups. Where are you? So he has to tell Henry's mom, Mrs. Moore, I'll call you back after the game, and I'll swing by as soon as I can. He goes out, plays a fantastic game. Maybe scores a hat trick, whatever, a huge game. And in his mind, he's dedicating this game to his friend Henry. So he's getting all this admiration, post game interviews, and whatnot. Anthony flies back to the hospital where Henry is. He shows up to the floor. Nurses tell him that visiting hours are over. He's like, "Oh, I just want to pop in and see my friend." They recognize him. They're like, "Wait, aren't you Anthony Lee?" He's like, "Yes, I am." And they're like, they're all in all of him, blah, blah, blah. So he uses this as an advantage to get past them, right? He's like, "Yeah, I would have visited earlier, but I had the game to play. Do you mind if I just step in for a minute, just see my friend? He's been my friend since childhood, right? Just sprinkle in a little sad story and to try to persuade him over." So they let him through. He goes into Henry's room. Henry's still unconscious, sleeping. Henry's parents are still there. He has a quick conversation with them. They tell him what happened. They showed up home. They found Henry unconscious on the floor with a bottle of pills laying next to him. They immediately call the ambulance. It's a good thing he wasn't passed out for that long. So they were able to pretty much revive him, resuscitate him. It's late. Anthony, usually in his past life, he would sleep in the hospital room, but he decides to go back to his apartment, his penthouse. He's living the high life now. He's a star, right? He goes back to his penthouse. He's feeling terrible. He doesn't want to feel terrible anymore, so he tries to escape. Uses all the good headlines, all the good comments, messages to kind of help him sleep. Right. So next day he shows up to the hospital room. Henry's awake. First he consoles Henry, saying he's happy he's okay. He's glad that he's alive. Tells him how much he appreciates him. He then turns this into kind of a confrontational thing. He's like, what were you thinking? I thought we were making progress, man. Anthony has helped Henry, talked him off the ledge a couple times before. This is like actual first time that Henry's actually tried to attempt it, gone through with it. So he's like, what would you, your parents are here. How would they feel if you actually died, right? So he feels like he's gone through to Henry, talked some sense into him. Feels like this experience is going to make turn Henry for the better. So Henry gets discharged from the hospital a few days later. Anthony meets up with Henry, just to talk, just to catch up. Takes him to their old stomping grounds, their college field. They're kicking the ball back and forth. They're just chatting. He tells Henry, he's like, "Hey, they're reminiscing about old times, how they used to play together on this field." Tells Henry, "Hey, I know we don't talk as much as we used to because, I can't, I'm busy with all this stuff. You know how it goes with media, practice, playing, and all that." Henry seems to understand, says he's happy for everything that Anthony's accomplished. And then Anthony has to leave. He gets hit with a massive opportunity. GM calls him and tells him that a team from Europe wants to contract his services, wants to have him play as a fill-in for a few games, and it's Liverpool, right? So this is Anthony's dream. This is what he's been working for ever since he was little, to play overseas, in front of a global audience in a huge stadium, sold out crowds for a recognizable and an elite team out there full of other star players. So he takes the opportunity, right? Says goodbyes to everyone, goes there. He Now he's living a champagne life, right? This is a massive opportunity for him. He's flying private. He's going to parties, meeting other global superstars of soccer, of football, and he's meeting celebrities. He's partying, posting everything on social media. Him living champagne lifestyle. Him, buying bottles of $100,000 champagnes and just wasting it, spraying it everywhere. You know, in pools full of beautiful women, just living the high life, right? The high life as a young superstar. But still, he's a good person on the inside, right? He doesn't forget where he comes from. Takes the time to write a thoughtful card and message to Henry and his family, saying how thankful he is for them, how they've you know how they've always been there for him since he was little. Because they always say they've always sent him messages on how proud they are of him, even though Anthony and Henry's soccer careers took opposite turns, right, when it started to get serious. So he buys them, sends them a package, the card, buys them all Rolexes because why not? He can afford it, and things are going well. He's talking to Henry again. They're FaceTiming. Everything just seems good on the surface. Henry thanks Anthony for everything he's done for him regarding his mental health, trying to talk to him when he can. He appreciates him as a friend, basically, and as a brother. Anthony says, yeah, of course, I'm always going to be here for you. If you ever need someone to talk to, you're going through something, you're feeling uneasy, just send me a text. I'm a phone call away. You know how to reach me. I'll always pick up and answer. And then, things start to skyrocket for Anthony's career, right? He's killing it. He's living up to the hype. He's over delivering in his role on Liverpool, and things are looking great. Things are looking great. And his contract time, the duration for it, is coming to an end. And there are talks of Liverpool wanting to sign him to an even longer term deal. So this doesn't have to be a temporary thing for him. He can actually live out his dream permanently. And this is when things start to change for our main character here. So Dave, why don't you take us into this next part of the story?
Yeah, so after getting this exciting news, and again, news that will catapult his life even further, Anthony gets a call from Miss Moore that Henry has killed himself. And she takes on a consoling role at this point, trying to make Anthony know that he wasn't the one to cause anything that led to Henry passing on. And this makes, Anthony is really shocked and paralyzed. He thought everything was on the up and up. His career was on the up and up. He thought Henry was doing better because they were having conversations. And Henry recently called him and he spoke to him and thanked him. But Anthony didn't know that was pretty much the last goodbyes. Anthony goes to, at this point, the wake, and he's still in a state of not knowing how to deal with his emotions. Anger, sadness, all those things are playing against each other. But also the fact that his career is doing better are all jockeying for position. And what Anthony does at the wake is he bends over and gives Henry, he says a little prayer for Henry that if he could hear it, only he would hear it, and instead his spirit will be able to hear it. Anthony decides to extend his contract and stay in Europe to play, as this would be the best decision for his career. Again, he thinks this is going to push him further. However, this time when he takes the pitch, his performance on the field begins to go down, which causes backlash from fans and reporters, pretty much saying, is he, a short-term wonder? He had all this potential, but was it just for a short term? The headlines start to mess with him. The comments on social media start to get to him. This causes him to get further depressed and causes him to not play as well. Eventually, he gets cut. He's not performing. Now he's back to square one, teamless. He returns to the U.S. He goes to his old club and to ask them to bring him back. And they do, even though they're also worried that he won't be able to perform up to the level that he was performing, even when he was on the U.S. team. He decides that he's going to sit himself out, and they have him run through practices to see what he can do, and maybe he can get better. But it's not looking good, looking kind of grim. As a way to kind of get over his problems and just deal with all the pressure that he's been mounting on his own shoulders, and putting himself in a state of isolation, he starts to discuss his problems on social media during this hiatus. And this helps him not only come to terms with what happened with Henry, but it helps him understand his emotions and his thoughts, his feelings on the passing of his friend. And the most interesting things happens that he gains supporters. So all the naysayers that were saying these terrible things about him in social media and in the press either begin to fall silent, or they become his supporters on social media. And this only helps Anthony gain more confidence in sharing his thoughts, his feelings, his emotions with more people, as there's a lot of people going through similar issues that he's going through, similar ideas, and they just don't have anyone else to really share them with. And there's a community started to be built around that shared pain and that shared isolation, and they're starting not to feel as isolated just by having someone so visible globally come out and have these conversations, these very raw, authentic conversations online. Anthony decides he needs to really focus on making himself his best self. Living in the past and being sad and depressed, as sad as the events were, are not going to help him move forward with his life. It doesn't mean he's going to forget his friend, but he seeks out help, and through that help, through therapy, come to understanding that he's not the cause of his friend's passing, and that he still needs to. It would be in his best interest to move forward, right? So he starts to practice almost religiously, day and night. He's always practicing. He's continuing to share his mental health status and his thoughts and his feelings online, and continues to build that community. By the time, after some time, we're going to have the first game that he's going to play in. He steps onto the field after a long time. And as you can imagine, he's unsure of what emotions he's going to have, but also what people are going to feel and think about seeing him on the field. The last time he was on the field, he's getting booed. Terrible things were being written about him, and now he's returning to the field, and he's just that unsureness about what's going to happen next. He walks out of that tunnel. The fans see him. They cheer him. They applaud his return. His confidence really starts to shine, as you can see in his face. His confidence is back. He has an amazing game. He's feeling like his old self. But now he's even better because he's come full circle, right? He's already a great player. He had this incident happen, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And now he's someone who is here to play a great game. He understands his emotions, and he's able to better communicate his emotions. As the game ends and the players begin to walk off the field, one of the fans rushes him to try to meet him at the tunnel. As security is pulling him away, the fan tells him how he's helped him by helping so that way he didn't commit suicide. And Anthony kind of brushes away the security and hears him out, which is kind of the point, to be able to hear out folks who are having these thoughts and ideas. And he hears him out. And again, the guy tells him, how him having these conversations online in his world reduced the stigma and made him seek help and talk more about how he was feeling. And he saved him from suicide. And, well,
And that is the end of
that's the
our
way
story.
we ended this story.
All right. So to top off our story, we need to give it a title.
Oh,
As
yes.
always, the last thing, and then we'll see what the AI comes up with. And fortunately for you guys, or unfortunately, it's not going to take the AI 2.5 hours to come up with a story.
Yeah.
It'll take it like 3 minutes. So, but I'm feeling good about our chances. So, titles.
Okay.
Bend
Now,
it
do
like
you-
Anthony.
Oh my God. Henry's story.
Goals and trolls.
Soccer and football.
You get one shot.
Henry's dilemma. Anthony's. It's not really Anthony's redemption.
One shot.
That just sounds like a 90s movie. One shot. Moving forward. It sounds more like a book title than anything else.
Moving forward. Yeah. That's like
It's
a play on word.
Yeah. Because he's a forward. It's not great though. Or it's barely even. It's decent. What's his name? So we have Anthony Lee's realization. Anthony Lee. We have Henry. Soccer. The pitch.
The game off the field. The
behind the pitch.
Behind the pitch. It's not bad. Outside the pitch.
It's not bad either. Outside the pitch. Off the field.
Off the field. Yep. The greatest game ever played. Off the field.
I got it.
What you got?
This is it. Anthony's Prayer.
That's definitely a book title, but yeah. We can do
Yeah,
that.
it is. It's all the prayers laid out. If you name something Anthony's Prayer, that means whatever his prayer actually is, it needs to be like, it needs to bring the house down.
Yeah.
You
For sure.
you stake a lot on a title like that.
For sure. Yeah. No, I like that. Anthony's Prayer. Anthony's Prayer it is. That's the name of our story. Now, we're going to take this over to what this AI can come up with this
Yes, let's
story.
see.
So let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Okay, so basically what I'm going to tell this AI, I'm going to be like, can you create a story using, pull up our words again, card, compete, prayer,
Telephone.
telephone,
Unfortunate.
and unfortunate, using the words as themes or ideas in the story. Does this look like a good prompt?
That looks good to me.
All right. Press enter. Oh boy. Look at this thing go.
Wow, we have a person named Jack.
Jack. Okay. So it's done. It took
Okay.
5 seconds. All right. So once there was a boy named Jack who lived in a small town in the countryside. Actually, let me read this without sharing my screen so it looks good on the recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, read it. Read it so we can hear.
Okay, so this is what the AI spit out as its story. Once there was a young boy named Jack who lived in a small town in the countryside. Jack was a very competitive person and always liked to compete with his friends in various activities. One day, Jack and his friends decided to play a game of cards to see who was the best. As the game began, Jack quickly realized that he was not doing very well and was losing to his friends. Frustrated and determined to win, Jack began to pray to God to help him win the game.
Okay.
This must have been a pretty high stakes card game.
He must have bet it all.
Just as he finished his prayer, the telephone rang and Jack's mother called him to come inside for dinner. Reluctantly, Jack had to leave the game and go inside. When he returned to the game after dinner, he found that he had lost and was the last place finisher. Feeling unfortunate and disappointed, Jack vowed to practice more and get better at cards so he can win the next time. All right. So immediately, I'm going to say we won 1-0.
Yeah, 100%.
Man against machine. Stood no chance.
Even though our story has some plot holes for sure, and needs some decent fixing, it still is a overall more interesting by far story than what AI could generate this time.
So
around.
I'm gonna give this AI a fair shot. I'm gonna give it because last time I tried this, I gave it the same themes that we used to see what they come up with. So I'm gonna give it the words. I'm gonna tell it to use a character as a soccer player and a suicidal best friend. and
Okay.
see what it spits out.
I'm curious to see.
All right. So please include the main character. Please have the main character as a soccer player, a star soccer player. And he has a suicidal best friend. Okay, so I'm going to use the same prompt as last time, but I'm only adding the sentence. Please have the main character as a star soccer player, and he has a suicidal best friend.
Okay.
So I'm going to hit go. All right, here it goes. This is a longer story.
Okay.
Much longer story. I'll read it over here. Okay, so the main character in the story is a star soccer player named James. So we have James now. James was known for his skill on the field and his competitive spirit. He always wanted to be the best and win every game he played. One day, James received a call from his best friend, who was feeling very down and depressed. His friend confided in him that he was struggling with thoughts of suicide and didn't know what to do. James, being the loyal friend that he was, promised to be there for his friend and help him through this difficult time. James spent the next few days doing everything he could to help his friend, including talking to him on the phone every day and offering words of encouragement and support. However, despite his best efforts, his friend's mood did not improve, and he continued to struggle. As the days passed, James found himself torn between his responsibilities as a star soccer player and his desire to help his friend. He knew that he had an important game coming up, and he needed to focus on preparing for it, but also didn't want to abandon his friend when he needed him the most. Feeling frustrated and unsure what to do, James decided to turn to prayer. He prayed to God to give him strength and wisdom to help his friend and also succeed in the upcoming game. As the day of the game arrived, James felt a mix of emotions. He was nervous about the game and the pressure to win, but he was also worried about his friend and how he was doing. Despite his concerns, James put on a brave face and stepped onto the field. The game was intense, and both teams were evenly matched. James played his heart out and managed to score a few key goals, but in the end, his team just fell short of victory. Feeling unfortunate and disappointed, James returned home and called his friend to check in on him. To his surprise, his friend sounded much better and even thanked James for being there for him. In the end, James learned that sometimes even the most competitive person needs to prioritize the well-being of others over their own desires to win. He also learned that with faith and determination, it is possible to overcome even the most difficult challenges. All right, that was a little more detailed and had a much more thought out plot line.
Yeah,
But
I think there's similarities. However, it kind of took a whole turn. I think the way they incorporate prayer was quite different, and it was nice to see. However, I think our story is still a little bit more
much better,
gratifying.
not even close.
Gratifying, and
there were similarities though.
Yeah,
when I was reading the phone call thing, I was like, "Oh no, did this thing have the guy's mom call him?"
yeah.
So it was pretty interesting. If you do give the AI like a similar theme as what you're using, it'll come up with maybe something similar.
Yeah.
But still, all in all, in terms of story, I think man takes this one.
I think so. Yep.
And let us know what you guys think.
Yes,
that
please.
is the end of our episode. And we'll see you guys next week for a new story, new set of words. And let's see what we come up with. Maybe some more dark stuff, of course. It's probably a given by now.
I can't wait to return.